So we're talking about simple steps to draw anything. And those simple steps start with thinking big and simple and then going small and complex. We live in a 3D space. The world we live in is three-dimensional. It's important that we at least understand how that 3D space works with these basic shapes. These are tools that we can use depending on what that piece is, what the project is that we're working on, what we're trying to go for. If you like the way it looks, it's awesome. It doesn't have to be any certain kind of way. This is just to give you a tool to produce the things that you're thinking of or that you want to draw. So let's talk about shapes in 3D space. So we started with a triangle, square, a circle, and then we kind of had a couple variants like a rectangle and an oval. You might hear people call that an ellipse. It's really just an oval. So if we're going to make this into a 3D shape, we need to practice drawing these shapes with me because this is kind of, again, the first step towards drawing those more specific or complex things. We're going to start with the basic shapes. And in 3D space, a triangle might look like a cone or a pyramid. Now, a cone starts with a circle on the bottom, which if we're looking at it in perspective, it's going to look more like an oval. So just start drawing with an oval. A pyramid's going to start with a square, but again, in perspective, it's going to look a little different. And so we're going to draw this kind of skewed rectangle. Now this is, again, a basic shape you can start with. So just draw an oval, and we're going to take this side right here and here, and we're going to connect them over at the top with a triangle. So each side connects up to make a triangle, and it's like this triangle has been rounded out on the bottom. Now you have a cone. That's really all you need to draw the cone. With the pyramid, you're going to take each corner like this, and you're going to connect them up to the same point because we're working with a triangle. We're going to connect this, and this to that point, and now we have a pyramid. We're assuming there's a line there in the back. The cone, there's not going to be any sharp points except the top, and so we can just kind of assume, and probably you'll see some shading happening to show you that it has this roundness to it. Cone and a pyramid. Take some time, practice those shapes so you can get familiar. When we go look at the square, this is going to go to a cube. Now you may have even practiced this just in school. You're doodling, you're bored, and you start with a square. And then we're going to take each corner and we're going to push them out the same direction, same length, in any direction you want to. So let's say that we're going to go like this. Now I'm going to do that same line on each corner, and now I'm going to connect those corners together. Following the same line here, I'm going to take it up there, same line here, take it over here. Now, I kind of messed this line up here, but you can see that's kind of how a cube is sort of expanded from a square. Start with the square, push out those corners, and then follow the same direction lines so you get the same edge because we're just pulling it out. You have a cube from a square. Now from a circle, you're going to have a couple shapes. The first is going to be a sphere, which really is pretty simple. It can be simple and can be complicated, but it can just be a circle. You could just draw a circle and it is a sphere because you're assuming this kind of roundness to it, like a basketball or any kind of sports ball. A lot of times you'll see the shading or the value on it that kind of shows you that it has that shape to it, that it's not just a flat circle. And so the shading or that value we'll get into, but you could do it as simply as just drawing a circle. You're assuming this kind of roundness to it. So you could do a sphere, or you could do a cylinder. Now, again, it's in perspective. So we're going to start with an oval, and we're going to do the same thing with the cube. We're going to take these edges, and we're going to push them out in the same direction, but the cylinder is going to go in perpendicular So if my oval's going this way, then my edges will go this way. I'm going to push them out, and then I'm going to take the same edge right here, and I'm going to put it on the bottom. Now I have this cylinder. It's assuming this circle or oval kind of continues down here. If I was going to look at the cylinder from the top, I would just see a circle. Say it's a can from your pantry, like you're looking down into it from the top. But if you put it on its side, you might actually just see a rectangle. And if you look at it at a perspective, you're going to see something more like that. So you can start drawing a cylinder. Start with an oval, push out your sides, and take this edge, put it back down on the bottom. You want it to be the same right here. A rectangle is going to be just like a cube, starting with a long shape rather than just a square. And so you're going to take each corner and you're going to expand them out the same direction, same length, and you could go as long or short as you want. Now I'm going to take this edge and I'm going to do the same edge up here. Take this edge, I'm going to do the same edge right here. So now I have a box. And this box could look a lot of different ways. It could be tall and skinny and not very deep. It could be similar to a square, but maybe I make it go pretty far out. So you could do a box in a lot of different ways. Practice this maybe in different directions, but start with kind of a different shape than a square. An oval would be, I think the easiest way to do this first is just an egg, because it's like a sphere and you could just draw the oval itself, but when you put shading or just the context of that drawing, it's going to be this rounded shape. Or you could do a version of a cylinder as well, and maybe this is like an oval in a different direction. Well, whichever direction that this canister or this cylinder is going to go, I'm going to take those edges and push them out the same way. Now I'm going to take this edge and I'm going to add it down to the bottom. So you can say I went too far there, but you can see how that works out. We're elongating it with straight sides. You could do this honestly with any kind of shape. You could do a funky shape and just take those sides straight down. All you need to do is now take this edge and transfer it down here, and now you've expanded it, and you can kind of add a little detail. I know that it's going to kind of go back up here and kind of come forward, but this is how that might work. Practice some of these basic shapes. This is what we're going to be using to build out. It's like kids blocks. You have a pyramid, you have a cylinder, but putting them together in different formations or overlapping or connected in different ways, we're going to really be able to create anything that we see or anything we're thinking of. So here are some examples. We start using three-dimensional shapes to create objects. We're, again, starting big, simple, and then going in detail. But in these cases, we're going to start looking at three-dimensional. So when I look at this bottle, I really see a few cylinders, and that's what I'm going to start with. So I look at the base and I see what angle is that base at, and how skinny is that oval going to be. So this is about what my base is looking like, and I'm going to have that same shape at the top. So now I know that these are going to connect because I'm already recognizing a cylinder here, and I know how that shape works. Now when I look at the cap, it's the same thing. It's just a little smaller, a little bit higher, and I see my corners right here. And so I'm going to put in my base of that cylinder, put in the top, and connect those edges. So now I have effectively that whole bottle, and if I wanted to draw that myself, then I can start with the base, put in the top, and now I look here, I'm observing kind of the space in between, how much the size is different, and I'm going to put the cap in. And so then I have, it's a little wonky here, so I would fix that. And I have that same bottle drawn on my own, just using cylinders. I would erase a couple of these lines because I don't need those. I know that they're kind of behind the actual front of the object. So in this shape, it's a lot more straight edges. There are corners here, and I'm most likely going to be using a cube rather than a cylinder. But it's really the same kind of idea. I'm going to go for my front face, and I can see a cube is all kind of coming together. Now I'm going to extend those corners back. And this one would extend as well. And now connect those together. This is behind the chair. And so we can see there's a cube here. That is what this chair looks like. And now I'm just going to observe. I'm going to see, hey, how far away from the corner does this base start? Where does the cushion go? And that's going to give me the rest of the information. But I'm starting with a cube to inform everything else. So here I might look, it's about halfway. That's where the cushion comes in. It's the same angle where the cushion goes back, and it comes straight down this edge. And so here I might also see, hey, the chair kind of has this width to it, and so let me draw that in. And the base is about halfway from the cushion and the base of my cube. I'm going to follow that same line. I could put legs in, and I could complete the chair itself, just starting with a basic cube. So the idea is I'm starting with the most basic shape, and then I'm filling in the details as I go. Okay, this example is a bit more organic. There's a few different shapes going on, and there's some life to it. So it would be a little bit more tricky as I kind of get it to a finished point, but I want you to understand there's still simple shapes even in these kind of subjects. So I'm going to start and see, what do I see first? Well, I think the simplest thing as I'm looking at kind of the head, the main part of this animal, is a sphere. And I know it's not a perfect sphere, but it's going to be pretty close to a circle here as I round out his head. So that's where I'm going to start. Again, as we draw a sphere, it's essentially just a circle, because unless you use value, you don't really maybe see the curvature of that shape. And so let's start with a sphere over his head. I know it's going to go behind his nose, but that sphere is going to connect there. Now his nose, I can kind of, as I'm observing the animal in these shapes, I know it's connecting to his face around here, and it's going to end around here. And so it's kind of a cone with a cut top on there. It's not going to come to a full point, but I know that there's this round base to it. It's going to go up, coming together, and then there's this round top as well. Again, I'll fill in the details as I go, but I want you to see the simple shapes that make up the actual subject. Now what's down here is probably more of an oval or an egg type shape, and so I'm going to just round that out. I know it's going to go under the water, so I may not need to draw all of it. But if I'm drawing this on my own with, on a blank paper, just using this as a reference, then I'll probably start with my sphere. I know about right off the center is going to be the base of that cone. Then I'll pull it together with that top, and this oval, I'll just draw it out because it's helping me complete the whole thing. Eventually I'll realize, hey, it cuts off with the water, but this is going to help me draw the actual subject. Then I have his fins, and I probably would just observe that it's really kind of this teardrop shape. And over here, it's more of a triangle that comes off. And so it's really just that observation, but what I'm looking at more than anything is the three-dimensional shapes of his head, this cone, and his body. And so if I'm going to add this, I know there's kind of this teardrop shape for that fin, and this fin comes off the triangle. So I'm able to draw the same thing so easily because I'm looking at basic shapes. I'm not thinking, how do I draw a dolphin? I'm thinking, how do I draw a cone and a sphere and a triangle? Anyone can do that. Now when I have this together, I can add in the details. I can look at where his mouth goes on that cone. It kind of curves off here at the bottom. He has an eye right here. And you can add in all the little details, the marks of his body. And now I can translate the same thing to my drawing. And so I can draw out a dolphin using the simple shapes that I have right here. We go big and simple to small and complex. So here is a person. There is a lot of detail that goes into drawing a full person, or especially the face. I just want to give you a good example of some of the simple shapes that make up a person. Even though it looks complex, we can still use really basic three-dimensional shapes, just like all of our other examples. So when I look at this person, when you think about the legs or the arms, they're essentially cylinders. And you have these sections like the calf, the bottom of the leg. And we know it's three-dimensional, and so there's this roundness to it. So we have cylinders on the bottom. You have cylinders on the top. And here, right around the pelvic area, we have pretty much a box, and it's going to be facing forward. So you have some depth right there. And then you have, when you look at kind of the torso, it's also going to be in the shape of a cube or a bit of a rectangle, three-dimensional shape. So you can see there's some depth right there that obviously is being blocked by the rest of his body, but we're building out a person with the most basic shapes. There's a cylinder here for the arm, and then it goes back that way. There's a cylinder here for this arm. And then with his neck, you could do a cylinder, because our necks are round, and a sphere, at least for how we're looking at his head, for his head. The idea here is that we're looking at simple, basic shapes to create a complex image. And how do we draw something like this from a reference? We start with the simple shapes, the direction of the legs, but we know, hey, it's essentially a cylinder, so I could draw that myself. The whole point of this is to understand that we can use basic shapes to create complex images. There's a lot of practice that goes into this and being able to do it the way that you're picturing or as accurate as you're hoping to, but I want you to understand there are simple shapes everywhere we look. Even in the most complex kind of subjects, there are simple shapes. Again, these are just tools to help us be able to draw the things we're thinking of or that we're inspired by, maybe reference that we're looking at. And maybe your style, what you're going for is accuracy. This will be really helpful for that. Maybe your style is something that is very abstract or it's really stylized, and so it's kind of a representation of something. This will help you as well, because when you know how it's built or how that thing works, when you know how those shapes connect and create something, then you can manipulate it to the way you want because you understand it. Now you can kind of work with it. You can make it yours, make it your style, what your message is, what you want to bring into the world. So more than anything, this affects how we look at the world around us. We start noticing shapes, noticing cones, noticing cylinders. And when I want to go and draw something, I start recognizing shapes first. We start big and simple. Start with the big shape, start with the simplest idea, and then we work down into the details, which we'll get into a little later. So go find something around your house. Go take some pictures of some things around the neighborhood, or just grab an item and put it on your desk and try to draw it. Look for the basic shapes, start there, and then work in the details. Practice, go over it a couple times, do it more than once. Draw some things around you that you see. They could be very simple. They don't have to be a masterpiece or something you even show to anyone else. Just try it. Do it for fun. Let's work on this skill so that we can keep creating some really great art.